At 3:08 a.m., a 95-pound German Shepherd let out a single bark. He had not barked in 7 months. 47 seconds later, a 14-month-old baby was alive, only because this dog, the one nobody wanted, had been waiting for this exact moment every single night since the baby came home. Apollo, a 95-pound German Shepherd, sat motionless beside the high chair as 11-month-old Owen reached toward him with a tiny piece of pancake in his fist. The dog did not move. He did not lean forward. His eyes stayed fixed on the baby's face, his enormous head resting at the table's edge, patient as stone. Riley Bennett stopped in the kitchen doorway and watched. This was the same dog 3 families had returned, the same dog the shelter had labeled too dangerous for households with children, the same dog her neighbor had called a ticking bomb. And in 14 days, this dog would save Owen's life. Riley Bennett was 31 years old, an elementary school teacher in Denver, Colorado. She and Chase had been married 5 years when they finally saw 2 pink lines. It was their 4th attempt, 3 years of fertility treatments, 2 miscarriages, both in the 2nd trimester. By the time Riley was officially pregnant, she had stopped letting herself hope. She did not buy clothes, she did not paint the nursery. Hope, in her experience, was a thing that broke you. But the house was never empty during those long years. Apollo had arrived as a 1-year-old, surrendered to a German Shepherd rescue in Boulder. His previous owner had written one line on the surrender form: too intense, too watchful, too much. 3 families had taken him before Riley and Chase. The first returned him after 11 days because he stood at the front door at 3 a.m. every night and would not move. The second family lasted 6 weeks. They said he refused to eat unless someone sat on the kitchen floor with him. The third family kept him for 4 months, but their teenage son grew afraid because Apollo pressed all 95 pounds against him every time the boy tried to leave. When Riley first walked into the kennel, Apollo did not bark. He did not jump. He simply stood up, walked forward, and pressed his nose against the wire. Then he sat down and looked up at her. "He picks his people," the shelter director said softly. "Most dogs want anyone. Apollo wants someone." Riley signed the papers an hour later. The first night Apollo came home, he walked through the entire house. He sniffed every corner, checked every door, then lay down at the foot of Riley's bed. He had chosen his post. The house was his now. For 3 years, Apollo was the silent guardian. He did not bark much, he did not pull on the leash, he was 95 pounds of calm certainty. Until Riley got pregnant. The first change came in week 12. Apollo began sniffing her belly. Just once, in the morning, quiet. They thought it was sweet. By week 22, he had moved his sleeping spot beside Riley's stomach. Chase woke one night at 2 a.m. and saw Apollo simply sitting there, watching her sleep, not anxiously, present, on duty. Then came week 31. Riley felt something, a pressure in her chest, a strange dizziness as she stood up from the kitchen table. Apollo, who had been across the room, stood up immediately and pushed his head against her thigh, hard. He would not move. 20 minutes later, the dizziness turned into something worse. They went to the hospital. The doctor said it was preeclampsia, caught early enough to manage. If they had missed the warning signs, Riley and the baby could have been in serious danger. The doctor called it a coincidence. Riley wasn't sure. Baby Owen was born on March 23rd at 6:52 a.m. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, blonde hair, deep blue eyes. When Riley and Chase brought him home 3 days later, Apollo was waiting at the front door. He did not jump. He did not move forward. He simply waited. Riley walked in first, Owen wrapped against her chest in a soft blue blanket. Apollo took 2 slow steps. He lowered his enormous head, pressed his nose gently to the edge of the blanket, and held it there for exactly 4 seconds. Then he stepped back, sat down, and looked up at Riley. "It was the most conscious look I have ever seen on an animal," Riley said later. "Like he was telling me, I've got him now. You can finally rest." He wasn't asking for permission. He was making a vow. That was the moment Apollo's entire routine changed forever. The first night Owen slept in his crib, Apollo lay down outside the nursery door. Chase called him to bed. Apollo did not glance over. Riley brought him a treat. He did not take it. They moved his food bowl to the hallway. He ate twice the next morning, fast, then returned to the door. By 6:15 a.m., when Owen made his first cry of the day, Apollo was already standing, ears up, watching the doorway. This continued for 7 months without a single exception. Not in rain, not when Chase traveled for work, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. every single night, outside the nursery. But it was the meals that broke Riley's heart. When Owen sat in his green high chair for breakfast, Apollo positioned himself on the floor beside it, his chin resting at the table's edge, eyes locked on every spoonful. He never tried to take the food. He never barked at the dropped pieces. When Owen offered Apollo a soggy piece of pancake from his tiny fist, Apollo would lean forward, sniff it once, then look up at the baby with what could only be described as gratitude. He never took it. The food would fall onto the floor, and Apollo would let it sit there until Riley picked it up. "He thinks the baby is offering him something more important than food," Chase said one morning. Riley nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak. Riley's mother joked, "Apollo acts like he's the real father of my grandson." I see you're still watching but haven't subscribed yet, and that honestly stings a little. Stories like Apollo's deserve to be seen. Hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. But not everyone smiled. Linda Hartwell, the 67-year-old neighbor across the street, stopped Riley one Saturday afternoon in October. Linda had raised 3 children and owned 2 German Shepherds in her lifetime. She knew the breed. "Sweetheart, I love that dog of yours," Linda said carefully, "but 95 pounds next to a baby? It only takes one moment. Our Bruno was perfect for 9 years. Then one day he snapped at my granddaughter. 4 stitches. Pure jealousy. Separate them at night." Riley listened politely, walked home, and looked through her living room window. Apollo was lying beside Owen's playmat. Owen had grabbed a fistful of his tail and was tugging on it, giggling. A small, soft hand, a massive, tufted tail. Apollo did not flinch. He simply turned his head, watched the baby, and blinked slowly, endlessly patient. That night, Riley told Chase, "Is Linda right? Are we missing something?" Chase shook his head. Look at his eyes. Hurting Owen is the last thing he would ever do. But there was something. Not fear, not doubt. An unanswered question. Why was Apollo this obsessed? Then Tuesday night came. The temperature dropped. Snow began to fall for the first time that season. It was 3:08 a.m. on November 12th. A single sharp bark cut through the silence. Apollo had not barked at night for 7 straight months, not once. Riley shot up. Chase was already moving. They ran into the nursery. Apollo was standing at the crib, his nose pushed between the wooden slats, prodding Owen with short, urgent nudges. Owen's face was tinged blue. He was not breathing. Riley scooped Owen up in one motion, flipped him forward over her arm, hit his back, once, twice. On the 3rd strike, a small piece of plastic broke loose and bounced onto the carpet. A tiny rabbit ear snapped off a stuffed toy. Owen pulled in a giant gasp. Then he wailed, the most beautiful, alive, furious cry of her life. Apollo took 2 steps back. He did not relax. He just watched. Riley sat on the floor with Owen pressed against her chest and looked up. Apollo's eyes met hers, calm, unblinking, the gaze of a soul that had waited for this exact moment. Riley did not recognize the toy. It must have come from Linda's grandson Mason, who had visited that morning. The ear had fallen into the crib unnoticed, and Owen had pulled it into his mouth in his sleep. Apollo had not been guarding without reason for 7 months. He had been waiting. He didn't know when. He just knew it would come. Owen is 14 months old now. Apollo is 4. He still sleeps outside the nursery door every night. He still lets Owen offer him pancakes he never takes. Riley does not ask anymore. Chase does not worry anymore. Linda Hartwell came across the street last Sunday morning. She did not knock. She did not call ahead. She stood on the porch holding a piece of roasted chicken on a paper plate. When Riley opened the door, Linda did not look at her. She looked at Apollo, who had already padded over to greet her. "I was wrong about you," Linda said quietly to the dog. She knelt down with effort and placed the chicken on the paper plate in front of Apollo. He did not eat it. He waited. He looked at Riley first. Riley nodded. Apollo took one careful bite. Linda put both hands on his enormous head and cried, soft, slow, ashamed tears that had been waiting 9 years to fall. Apollo did not move. He let her cry. "Bruno was different," Linda whispered. "I should not have judged this dog by another dog's mistakes." Then she stood up, wiped her eyes, and walked home. Riley says it best: "We did not rescue Apollo. He rescued us. First me from myself, then Owen from a death we didn't even know was coming." Some dogs become parents without ever having pups. Some wait 7 months for a reason you cannot see. Some never sleep more than 3 feet from the smallest one. People called Apollo too much. They were wrong. Apollo wasn't too much. Apollo was exactly enough. Some stories deserve to be told. This is one of them.